The emergency signal came through at 400 hours, cutting through the silence of deep space like a scream. Captain woke instantly, his hand already reaching for the console beside his bed. He had spent 20 years in the military, and he knew the sound of real terror when he heard it. "Captain, to the bridge," the voice crackled. "We have a priority distress call from space." Pulled on his uniform and ran. The Iron Wolf was a Hunter-class destroyer, one of Earth's finest warships. Its corridors were narrow and gray, built for function rather than comfort. His boots echoed on the metal floor as he moved. The bridge was already busy when he arrived. Dr. Nuss stood at the communications station, her face pale. She was the ship's, normally calm and collected. Now her hands shook as she worked the controls. "Report," said, sliding into the captain's chair. "It's the colony on Sanctuary Prime," Nuss said. Her voice was tight. "They're under attack, something called the Devourers. The message says they're being consumed." Pulled up the transmission. The alien voice was thin and desperate. "Please, anyone who can hear this. We are dying, they eat everything. Our weapons do nothing. Please help us, please." Then the transmission cut to static. The bridge went quiet. Everyone knew what they were. They were one of the oldest members of the Galactic Council, a peaceful species that studied philosophy and art. They had no real military. They never needed one. "Get me Admiral Bow," said, and someone explained to me what the Devourers are. Now pulled up files on the main screen. They're an old legend, a swarm species from another galaxy. The records say they appeared 10,000 years ago, consumed 3 civilizations, then vanished. The Council thought they were extinct. "Well, they're not extinct anymore," said grimly. The screen flickered and Admiral Bow appeared. The old man looked like he had been carved from stone. His gray hair was cut short, military style. His eyes were hard. "Captain," Bow said, "you received the distress call." "Yes, sir. What are our orders?" "Stand by. The Galactic Council is meeting now. They have to decide how to respond." Felt his jaw tighten. "Sir, with respect, people are dying right now. Every minute we wait." "I know, Captain, but we can't move without authorization. Not yet." The connection ended. Sat back in his chair and stared at the static-filled screen where the message had been. His crew looked at him, waiting for orders he couldn't give. Hours passed. The Iron Wolf drifted in space, its weapons ready, its engines hot, but they couldn't move, not without permission. Finally, the call came through, but it wasn't from Admiral Bow. It was a broadcast from the Galactic Council itself. The image showed a massive chamber filled with aliens of every shape and size. At the center stood a thin and graceful, its skin a pale blue. This was Scholar, one of their leaders. "Honored Council," said, and even through the translation could hear the desperation. "My people are being slaughtered. We have tried to communicate with these creatures. They do not respond. We have tried to defend ourselves. Our weapons are useless. We need warriors, real warriors." A tall alien with too many arms stood up. "The Council does not wage war. We settle disputes through diplomacy and ritual combat. We have protocols." "Your protocols are meaningless against teeth and hunger." His voice cracked. "They are eating my children. They are consuming our cities. We need help now, or there will be no one left to save." The council chamber erupted in argument. Some species wanted to help. Others talked about treaties and rules. No one seemed to know what to do. Then a human voice cut through the noise. "We have warriors." Ambassador Wu Jin stood up. He was a small man by human standards, but he carried himself like a soldier. He had fought in the Mars Rebellion before becoming a diplomat. "Humanity offers its assistance," Wu Jin said. "We have the ships, we have the weapons, and we have the experience." A slug-like alien made a disgusted sound. "Yes, we know about human experience. You nearly destroyed your own planet with your wars. You're barely civilized. Should we really unleash you on the galaxy?" You asked for warriors, Wu Jin said calmly. We are what we are. Our history is violent, yes, but that violence taught us how to fight, how to win, the need that knowledge now. The debate went on for another hour. Some council members were afraid of what humans might do. Others were desperate enough not to care. Finally, they voted. The human fleet was authorized to respond with necessary force. Back on the Iron Wolf, received his orders. 12 human warships were being pulled from Earth's defense perimeter. They would head to Sanctuary Prime at maximum speed. He called his crew together. They packed into the briefing room standing shoulder to shoulder, young faces and old ones, veterans and fresh recruits, all of them waiting to hear what was coming. We've been authorized to assist, said. We're going to war against something called the Devourers. Intelligence is limited. What we know is this: they're a swarm species. They consume organic and inorganic matter. They've never been defeated in recorded history. Someone in the back spoke up. Sir, what are the rules of engagement? Looked at the young officer. The man couldn't be more than 22. He still had hope in his eyes. That would change soon. They asked for Earth's warriors, said slowly. They asked for our beasts. There are no rules this time. We do whatever is necessary to save them, whatever it takes. The room went silent. Everyone understood what that meant. For the first time in 20 years of council membership, humanity was being asked to fight the way they used to fight, the way they fought when Earth was divided and nations destroyed each other. Total war. We jumped to slip space in 1 hour, said. Check your gear, say your prayers if you have them, and remember why we're doing this. Somewhere out there people are dying. They called for help. We're going to answer. The crew dispersed. Na stayed behind, looking troubled. Captain, she said quietly, do you think we can win? Thought about the young officer's question, about rules of engagement, about the way humanity used to fight back when they were still learning what they were capable of. I don't know if we can win, he said honestly, but I know we're going to try, and I know that when humans decide to protect something, we don't stop until the threat is gone or we are. The Iron Wolf prepared for departure. In the engine room, systems hummed to life. In the armory, weapons were loaded and checked. In the fighter bay, pilots climbed into their cockpits. Across human space, 11 other warships did the same. The fleet was small by council standards, but it was enough. It would have to be. Sat in his captain's chair and watched the countdown. 60 seconds, 50, 40. He thought about the voice on that first transmission, the fear, the desperation, the hope that someone would answer. Humanity was answering, and the galaxy was about to remember why the Council had been afraid of them in the first place. The timer hit 0. The Iron Wolf jumped to slip space and the hunt began. The human fleet moved through slip space like sharks cutting through dark water. Inside the Iron Wolf, the crew worked without stopping. There was no time to rest. The colony had maybe 70 hours before it fell completely. The fleet would arrive in 72. They had to get there faster. In the engine room, Engineer Ho Sung pushed the reactors beyond their safety limits. Sweat dripped down his face as he worked. The temperature was rising. Warning lights flashed red across every panel. Chief, the engines are at 110%, his assistant said nervously. The manual says we should never go above 105. Ho Sung didn't look up from his work. The manual was written by people who weren't trying to save an entire civilization. Give me 115%. Sir, if we blow the reactors. Then we blow them, but we get there first. 4 decks above, Lieutenant Da Bin sat in the cockpit of her fighter craft. She was young, only 23, but she had been flying since she was 16. Her hands moved across the controls, checking every system. Her ship was called Reaper 7, painted black with red markings. Around her, the fighter bay was full of activity. Mechanics ran between ships, loading missiles and checking fuel lines. Other pilots climbed into their cockpits. There were 200 fighters on the Iron Wolf alone. Across the fleet, there were thousands more. The bin's radio crackled. "Reaper 7, this is Reaper 1. Status check." "All systems green," she reported. "Ready to fly." "Good. We go in first when we arrive. Our job is to clear a path for the Marines." The bin felt her heart beat faster. This would be her first real combat. She had trained for years, run hundreds of simulations, but this was different. This was real. Far from Earth, the Galactic Council watched the human fleet through long-range sensors. In a monitoring station, Scholar of the studied the data with growing concern. They were a calculating species. They loved numbers and patterns. Scholar had spent his life analyzing military forces across the galaxy. He thought he understood warfare. Now he wasn't so sure. "Look at their formation," he said to his assistant. "It makes no sense. They're not arranged for defense. Every ship is positioned for attack. Perhaps they don't expect resistance during travel." "No, you don't understand," pointed at the screen. "Look at their ship classifications: carriers, destroyers, heavy cruisers, a dreadnought. They don't have a single diplomatic vessel. Every single ship is built for war." His assistant was silent for a moment. "Maybe they're just being cautious." Pulled up more data: weapons counts, ammunition stores, troop numbers. The numbers made his head hurt. "They're carrying enough missiles to level a planet," he said quietly. "And they brought 40,000 Marines. The Council sent honor guards to conflicts. Humanity sent an invasion force. Should we report this to the Council?" Thought about it. The Council was already nervous about letting humans respond. If they knew the full extent of what humanity brought, they might recall the authorization. "No," he said finally. "They are dying. If humans are our best chance to save them, then we need to let them work." But he kept watching and recording everything. Back on the Iron Wolf, Dr. Null worked in her laboratory, studying every piece of data they had on the Devourers. There wasn't much. A few ancient records, some blurry images, scattered reports from the... What she saw worried her. The Devourers weren't really ships. They were organisms, living creatures that flew through space and fed on everything they encountered. Metal, flesh, energy, it didn't matter. They consumed it all. The door opened and Captain walked in. "What have you learned?" he asked. Na pulled up an image. It showed a massive organic structure, all teeth and tentacles and pulsing flesh. Each Devourer ship is actually a hive. Inside are thousands of smaller creatures. When they attack, they don't just damage ships. They board them. They eat the crew alive. His face didn't change, but his eyes went cold. "Can they be killed?" "Everything can be killed," Na said, "but they regenerate quickly. Standard energy weapons might not work well. We need explosive force, fire, things that destroy tissue completely." "We have those things," said. "Humanity has always been good at killing." 68 hours into the journey, the fleet received an update from the... The message was broken and filled with static, but the meaning was clear. The eastern half of the colony was gone. 2 million dead. The survivors were retreating to the central shelters. They had maybe 12 hours left. In the command center of the Dreadnought Reckoning, Admiral Bow stood before a tactical display. The other ship captains appeared as holograms around him. "We arrive in 4 hours," he said. "We're going in hot. No formations, no ceremonies. We hit them with everything we have from the moment we drop out of slip space." One of the captains spoke up. "Sir, the Council warfare protocols require that we attempt communication first." "The Council protocols don't apply here," Bow interrupted. "The authorization said necessary force. I'm determining what's necessary. And these things don't communicate. They just eat. So we're going to teach them what happens when they try to eat something that bites back." He looked at each captain in turn. "First wave will be nuclear missiles. I want 500 in the air before they know we're there. Second wave is fighter craft. Clear us a path to the colony. Third wave is marine dropships. Get our people on the ground. And if we take losses, another captain asked. Bo's voice was like iron. Then we take losses, but we don't stop. We don't retreat. We don't surrender. We're humanity, and we're here to do what we do best, protect people who can't protect themselves, no matter the cost. The captain saluted and disappeared. Bo stood alone in the command center, looking at the tactical map. Red icons showed devourer positions. So many of them, too many. But he had learned something in his 40 years of military service. Numbers didn't matter. Not really. What mattered was will. The determination to keep fighting when everything said you should quit. Humanity had that determination. They earned it through centuries of fighting each other, learning hard lessons in blood and fire. Now they would use those lessons to save strangers. The Iron Wolf shuddered as it prepared to drop out of slip space. Dabin sat in her fighter, helmet on, breathing steady. Around her, the other pilots did the same. They were ready. In the Marine Bay, Sergeant Me checked her squad's armor one last time. She had fought in 3 colonial wars. She knew what combat looked like. She knew what death smelled like. Her Marines were young, but she would teach them. She would keep them alive if she could. In the medical bay, Na prepared beds and surgical equipment. She would save who she could. That was all anyone could do. On the bridge, sat in his captain's chair and watched the countdown. 30 seconds, 20, 10. The Iron Wolf and 11 other human warships dropped out of slip space at the edge of the system. Sensors immediately showed the enemy. Hundreds of devourer bioships, surrounding the colony like a swarm of insects around dying prey. For one moment there was silence. The devourers didn't react. They had never encountered resistance like this before. In their entire history, prey ran or died. It never fought back with such force. That moment of confusion was all humanity needed. All ships, Admiral Bo's voice rang across the fleet. Weapons free. Show them why Earth stopped fighting itself, because we learned to be very, very good at it. The first missiles launched. 500 nuclear-tipped warheads streaked across space, burning like fallen stars. The devourers finally reacted, but it was too late. The detonations turned space white. When the light faded, there was a gap in the swarm. Dabin heard the order through her helmet. Reaper Squadron, you are clear to launch. Let's go to work. She pushed her throttle forward, and her fighter shot out of the bay into open space. Behind her came hundreds more. The battle for Sanctuary Prime had begun, and the galaxy was about to learn what humanity brought to war. Everything. The drop pods fell through Sanctuary Prime's atmosphere like burning meteors. Inside one of them, Sergeant Me gripped her harness as the pod shook violently. Around her, 20 Marines did the same. Their armor was heavy, painted in dark gray. Their weapons were loaded. 30 seconds to impact, the computer voice announced calmly. Me switched on her squad channel. Listen up. When we hit, we move fast. These things are everywhere. Don't stop to fight unless you have to. Our job is to reach the refugee center and set up a defensive line. Clear. Yes, Sergeant, 20 voices answered. The pod slammed into the ground hard enough to crack concrete. The doors blew open and Me was moving before the smoke cleared. She ran out into a nightmare. The colony had been beautiful once. Now it was a ruin. Buildings were half-eaten, their metal frames exposed like broken bones. The streets were covered in a thick slime that the devourers left behind, and everywhere there were bodies. A devourer creature rounded the corner ahead. It was the size of a large dog, all teeth and claws and hunger. It screamed and charged at the Marines. Me didn't hesitate. Her rifle came up and she fired 3 rounds. The creature exploded in a spray of green blood. 2 more appeared behind it. Her squad cut them down instantly. Keep moving, Me shouted. They ran through the ruined streets. More drop pods crashed down around them. 10,000 human Marines hit the surface in less than 5 minutes, the largest ground deployment in Council history. At the refugee center, 100,000 huddled in terror. Guardian Laura, one of their defenders, stood at the entrance with a handful of others. They held simple energy weapons, designed for ceremonial purposes more than combat. They were trying to hold back a tide of monsters with tools meant for parades. Then the humans arrived. Laura watched in amazement as armored figures appeared from every direction, forming a defensive perimeter around the center. They moved with frightening efficiency, setting up weapons emplacements and barriers. These were not honor guards. These were soldiers who knew exactly what they were doing. Me found Laura quickly. "I'm Sergeant Me, Earth Marines. We're here to help. How many civilians inside?" "Nearly 100,000, Laura said. Her voice shook. "But the creatures are everywhere. We cannot hold them back much longer." "You don't have to hold them anymore," Me said. She turned to her Marines. "First and second platoons, defensive positions. Third and fourth, you're with me. We're going hunting." Laura grabbed Me's arm. "Hunting? But there are thousands of them. You should stay behind the barriers where it's safe." Me looked at the Guardian. "Every meter of ground they hold, someone dies. We'd rather it be us than your people. That's what we do." She led half her battalion into the ruined city. They found the Devourers feeding on what remained of the eastern sector. The creatures had grown fat and slow. They didn't expect prey to come looking for them. The Marines hit them with flamethrowers first. Fire washed across the street, turning creatures into screaming torches. Then came grenades, bullets, and focused plasma fire. The humans worked in teams, one group firing while another reloaded. They rotated positions, staying fresh while the enemy just kept dying. It wasn't a battle, it was an extermination. In orbit above the planet, the space battle raged. Lieutenant de Bin flew through a storm of teeth and metal. Her fighters' guns spat shells at enormous Devourer bioships. Each one was the size of a building, covered in armor made from consumed starships. "Reaper 7, you have 3 on your tail," her wingman warned. De Bin rolled her fighter and dove. The Devourer ships followed, surprisingly fast. She led them toward a human destroyer, then broke hard left. The destroyer's point defense cannons shredded her pursuers. "Thanks for the save," she transmitted. "Any time, Reaper 7. Now get back in the fight." The human fleet fought unlike anything the Council had ever seen. They didn't try to disable enemy ships or force surrender. They destroyed everything they encountered. Completely. Permanently. Captain stood on the bridge of the Iron Wolf, watching the tactical display. The Devourers were starting to adapt, changing their formations. But every change they made, the humans countered. "Captain, sensors are picking up more slipspace signatures," his tactical officer reported. "More Devourer ships are coming." Na looked at the numbers and felt her blood run cold. "Captain, this is 5 times the original force. We're going to be outnumbered 20-1. Opened a channel to Admiral Bow. "Sir, enemy reinforcements incoming. Recommend we call for backup." The Admiral's face appeared on screen. He looked tired but determined. "Backup is 40 hours away, Captain. Those people on the surface don't have 40 hours. We hold here." "Against 20-1 odds, sir." "We're human, Captain. When have we ever let the odds decide the outcome?" Bo smiled grimly. "Besides, I didn't come all this way to run from a fight. Time to show these things what the Iron Wolf pack really hunts." The new Devourer ships appeared on sensors. Hundreds of them, pouring through slip space like an infection spreading through healthy tissue. The Council monitoring station recorded everything in horror. Scholar watched his screens fill with red enemy markers. "They're going to die, all of them. The humans can't possibly win this." But humans had learned something during their violent history, something that civilized species had forgotten. Sometimes, when you can't win by being smart, you win by being crazy. The human fleet didn't retreat. Instead, they charged. Admiral Bow gave the order himself. All ships full attack formation. Fighters, you're our spear tip. Destroyers, follow them in. We're breaking their line. Bin heard the order and felt her hands tighten on the controls. This was suicide, flying directly at an enemy that outnumbered them 20-1. But the order was clear. Reaper Squadron, she transmitted to her unit. You heard the Admiral, form up on me. We're going in. Her squadron leader, Reaper 1, spoke up. Bin, this is insane. We can't. We can, she interrupted, because people are counting on us, because we're human and we don't quit, form up or get out of the way. Reaper 1 was silent for a moment. Then, all Reaper units form on Reaper 7. Let's show them how Earth flies. The human fighters dove into the enemy formation like a blade. They flew attack patterns that made no tactical sense, taking risks that should have gotten them killed instantly. But the very insanity of the assault worked. The Devourers couldn't predict what the humans would do because no rational species would fight this way. Losses mounted, fighters exploded, ships died, but for every human craft destroyed, 10 Devourer vessels went down. On the surface, Mies Marines fought through the night. The Devourers threw wave after wave at the refugee center. Each wave was cut down by human firepower. The Marines rotated positions, one squad resting while another fought. They were exhausted, running on adrenaline and determination. Guardian Laura fought beside them now, having picked up a fallen Marine's rifle. She watched these humans work and finally understood something. They fought with a ferocity that seemed almost animal, but it wasn't mindless. Every move was calculated, every shot placed with precision. They were wild and controlled at the same time. Why do you fight this way? She asked me during a brief break between attacks. Your people die to protect strangers. Why? Me reloaded her rifle without looking up. Because you asked. Because if we don't help when someone calls, then what's the point of anything? My grandmother used to say something. We're all just people trying to survive in a cold universe. Sometimes you have to be the warmth for someone else. Another wave hit and the conversation ended. Me went back to killing monsters. Laura stood beside her, firing until her weapon ran dry, then picking up another. 36 hours after the battle began, something changed. The Devourers started to pull back, not just retreating from one position, actually fleeing the system. Scholar recorded it all from his monitoring station, unable to believe what he was seeing. They're running, he said aloud. The swarm is actually running. His assistant looked at the data. The Devourers have never retreated before, not in 10,000 years of recorded history. They've never fought humans before, said quietly. He pulled up the casualty reports. Humanity lost 1,600 fighters, 3 ships, 4,000 Marines. The numbers were horrifying. But they survived. 100,000 civilians lived because 1,600 humans died. Began his report to the council. He wrote, the humans didn't fight like us. They didn't fight for honor or glory or territory. They fought to win and they brought everything they had. They are beasts, but perhaps that's what the galaxy needed. Perhaps we've been playing at war for so long we forgot what it actually takes to survive. The humans remember, and now they've taught the Devourers to remember too. They taught them fear. The sun rose over Sanctuary Prime, painting the ruined city in shades of gold and red. Sergeant Mee stood at the refugee center's entrance, watching the light spread across broken buildings. Her armor was scorched and dented. Her rifle hung loose in her tired hands. She had been fighting for 40 hours straight. Behind her, the Marines were finally standing down. Some collapsed where they stood, too exhausted to move. Others helped civilians sort through the rubble looking for survivors. The battle was over. Guardian Laura approached slowly. This blue skin was covered in dust and blood. She carried a human rifle, though she no longer needed it. Sergeant Mee, Laura said softly, I counted. 23 of your warriors died protecting this center. 23 humans gave their lives for people they had never met. Why? Me looked at the bodies being prepared for transport, young faces that would never go home. She felt the weight of it pressing down on her shoulders. Because you asked for help, she said simply. Because if we don't answer when someone calls, then we're not worth much as a species. But the cost is paid by us, me interrupted. That's our choice. We'd rather it be our people than yours. That's what soldiers do. We stand between the innocent and the darkness. Laura was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out and touched me's shoulder in the gesture of deepest respect. You call yourselves beasts, but I have seen true monsters today. You are not them. You are guardians. In orbit, Captain walked through the damaged corridors of the Iron Wolf. The ship had taken 17 direct hits. 3 decks were destroyed. Engineering reported the engines were barely holding together. But they won. That was what mattered. He reached the medical bay and found Dr. Nuh working on a wounded pilot. Her face was pale with exhaustion. She had been operating for 2 days without rest. How many? Asked quietly. Nuh finished sealing a wound before she answered. 1,600 dead across the fleet. Another 900 wounded. We lost 3 ships completely. 1,600. The number sat in stomach like a stone. 1,600 families would get messages soon. 1,600 homes would never be the same. We saved them, Nuh added, seeing his face. The 100,000 civilians are alive because of what we did. I know, said, but I also know I have to write 1,600 letters. I have to explain to 1,600 families why their loved ones aren't coming home. Nuh put down her instruments and looked at him directly. Captain, those pilots and Marines knew what they were doing. They volunteered to protect strangers. That's not a waste. That's the most human thing there is. Nodded slowly. He wanted to believe that. He needed to believe that. Far across the galaxy, the Galactic Council met in emergency session. The chamber was in chaos. Some species demanded that humanity be praised as heroes. Others called for them to be sanctioned for their brutal methods. Ambassador Wu Jin stood calmly at the human podium, waiting for the noise to die down. When it finally did, a representative spoke first. The human response violated 47 articles of the Warfare Convention, the said, reading from a long list. They used weapons we banned thousands of years ago. They displayed levels of aggression that violate every principle of civilized combat. They saved the, Wu Jin interrupted. That was what you authorized us to do. We did it. If you wanted something gentler, you should have sent someone else. But the methods, another representative protested. The violence, you fought like animals. Yes, Wu Jin agreed. We did, because animals don't care about honor or tradition when protecting their young. They care about survival. You asked us to save you didn't ask us to do it politely. Scholar, the representative, stood up. His people had suffered terribly, but they survived. The council debates methods while my people bury their dead, but we bury far fewer than we would have without human help. I say this clearly. Humanity saved us. Whatever their methods, whatever their nature, they answered our call when no one else would. The debate continued for hours. Finally, a vote was called. Humanity would be granted full council membership, but their military forces would need to accept regulation and oversight. When Wu Jin heard the terms, he smiled coldly. We will join your council. We will follow your laws during peacetime. But understand this, if another species calls for help, if another colony is threatened, we will respond. And we will respond the way we know how, with everything we have. You can call us beasts. You can call us savages. But when the darkness comes again, you'll call us first. The message was clear. Humanity would play by the rules most of the time. But when lives were at stake, the rules didn't matter. Back on Sanctuary Prime, Engineer Ho Sung found something strange in the wreckage of a Devourer bioship. He called Dr. Nuh down to the surface to look at it. See this, he said, pointing to organic matter that looked different from the rest. "This is brain tissue or something like it. The whole ship is connected to it." Na studied the samples carefully. Her expression grew troubled. "This is a hive mind species. Each ship is connected to a central intelligence. They share information instantly. So they learn from their mistakes." "Exactly. They attacked the expecting easy prey, but we fought back so hard, so viciously, that we taught them something new." Na looked at the destroyed ship. "We taught them fear. For the first time in their existence, the devourers learned that prey can be dangerous." Ho Sung was quiet for a moment. "Is that good or bad?" "I don't know yet," Na admitted. "But they fled. That's never happened before. Maybe fear will keep them away, or maybe they'll just bring more next time." 3 weeks after the battle, a memorial was built on Sanctuary Prime. It was a simple structure, made from metal salvaged from human ships. On it were carved 1,600 names, every human who died defending the colony. Captain stood before the memorial for the dedication ceremony. Thousands have gathered to watch. Guardian Laura led the ceremony, speaking in her own language. The translation device on Scholar whispered the words. "These names represent warriors from another world," Laura said. "They came when we called. They fought when we could not. They died so we could live. We will remember them, always." A young child named approached. She couldn't have been more than 6 years old. She held a small flower, blue and delicate. "My mother says you're a hero," said shyly. Knelt down to her level. "I'm just a person who answered when you called." "Thank you for answering." She handed him the flower. Took it carefully. The flower was so small, so fragile, so different from the violence and death of the past weeks. It reminded him why they fought, not for glory, not for recognition, for moments like this, for children who got to grow up. "You're welcome," he said quietly. As the ceremony ended, looked up at the stars. The battle was over. They were saved. But he knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy had seen what humanity could do. That would change everything. Some species would fear them, some would respect them, some would hate them, but all of them would remember. The Iron Wolf prepared to leave orbit a few days later. The ship was patched up enough to make the journey home. The crew was exhausted, carrying wounds both visible and invisible, but they were alive. Dr. Nuff found Captain on the bridge, staring at the stars. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "The future," he said. "The Council wants to regulate us, control us, make us follow their rules." "Will we?" Thought about the 1,600 names on that memorial, about and her flower, about Guardian Laura learning to fight beside humans. "We'll try," he said. "But when someone calls for help, when lives are at stake, we'll do what we always do. We'll answer, whatever it takes, because that's what humans do. We protect the pack, even if the pack is the entire galaxy." The Iron Wolf jumped to slip space, heading home. Behind it, Sanctuary Prime began to rebuild. The scars of battle would fade with time, but the memory of what happened there would not. The galaxy had learned something important. Humanity was dangerous, but they were dangerous in defense of others. They were beasts, yes, but they were beasts that chose to protect rather than destroy. And that made all the difference. 5 years passed. The galaxy changed in ways no one expected. Earth's orbital shipyards worked day and night, building new vessels. But these weren't purely human ships anymore. Council engineers worked alongside human designers, combining technologies. The new ships were faster than Council vessels and tougher than human warships, and they carried mixed crews. On one of these new ships, the Iron Wolf II, Captain Mi stood on the bridge. She wore a different uniform now. After Sanctuary Prime, she left the Marines and joined the regular fleet. The promotion came with more responsibility and less sleep. "Captain, we have a new crew member reporting," her first officer said. A young in a fresh uniform walked onto the bridge. The alien looked nervous but determined. This was Ensign older sibling too, the child who gave Captain a flower 5 years ago. "Permission to come aboard, Captain?" asked. Me smiled. "Granted, welcome to the Wolf Pack, Ensign." "I've heard stories about the first Iron Wolf," said. "My sibling is alive because of this ship's crew." "Then you understand what we do here," me said. "We're the ones who answer when someone calls for help. Think you can handle that?" "I hope so, Captain." The Iron Wolf II wasn't alone. Across Council space, humanity and other species worked together now. Not always smoothly. There were arguments and cultural clashes, but they were trying. Admiral, promoted after Sanctuary Prime, commanded the Rapid Response Task Force from Earth. His fleet consisted of 30 ships, half human and half Council vessels. Their mission was simple: respond to any distress call within 48 hours. Dr. Na had left the fleet too. She now worked at the Council Science Institute, studying potential threats to galactic peace. Scholar of the worked beside her. The two had become friends over the years. "Any news from the deep space sensors?" Na asked one day. Pulled up data with his multiple arms. "Nothing concrete, but there are reports. Ships going missing near the galactic rim, colonies losing contact. It could be technical failures or the Devourers are back," Na finished. They looked at each other. 5 years of peace. 5 years to hope the threat was gone, but both of them knew better. "I'll send the data to Admiral," said quietly. 3 weeks later, the worst fears came true. A mining colony on the edge of Council space sent a desperate message before going silent. The last transmission showed familiar bioships. The Devourers weren't just back. They had learned. The Galactic Council called an emergency meeting. The chamber was tense as representatives from every species gathered. "They're different now," a military analyst reported. "Larger ships, different tactics. They learned from Sanctuary Prime. They learned from fighting humans." Ambassador Sol I, who replaced Wu Jin as the human representative, stood up. "Then we need to adapt too. We need a unified fleet, combined forces, Council and human ships working together." The chamber erupted in arguments. Some species refused to work with human military forces. Others were too afraid of the Devourers to care about politics. Commander Ra Jin, a human officer assigned to Council integration, presented a plan. Half Council ships for their precision and shields, half human ships for firepower and tactics, combined training, combined command structure. We fight as one fleet or we die as separate ones. The debate went on for hours. Finally, the vote passed. For the first time in galactic history, the Council would wage total war, and humanity would teach them how. On a Council training station, Lieutenant Me, temporarily reassigned from the Iron Wolf II, trained alien soldiers in human combat methods. The students resisted at first. Her methods were harsh and focused on survival rather than honor. A trainee named Officer confronted her after a particularly brutal drill. "Your methods strip away everything we value. Where is the dignity in this?" Me looked at him directly. "Dignity doesn't stop teeth from ripping you apart. When the Devourers come, you can die with honor or you can live. I'm teaching you to live. The rest is up to you." Wanted to argue, but he had seen the reports from Sanctuary Prime. He knew humans survived by being practical, not proud. By the end of training, approached me again. "I understand now. We've been playing at war for so long, we forgot what it actually costs. Thank you for reminding us." Intelligence confirmed it 3 months after the first sighting. The Devourers were coming, not for one colony, for the Council. They were bringing a swarm 10 times larger than Sanctuary Prime. The unified fleet assembled at the Barrier Nebula, the last natural defense before reaching Council space. 300 human ships, 700 Council vessels, over 1 million warriors across dozens of species. Admiral commanded the vanguard from the new flagship Guardian. Admiral Bow, now elderly but still sharp, commanded the overall fleet. The Council's military leader, Thorn, coordinated strategy. Thorn was old even by Council standards. He had fought in the last Great War 3,000 years ago. He met privately with before the battle. "I remember war," Thorn said, his voice tired. "Real war. We ended it because the cost was too terrible, but now I wonder, did we become weak because we forgot how to fight?" "You weren't weak," said. "You were civilized. But civilization only survives when someone is willing to be the beast at the gate. That's what humans learned. That's what we're here to teach." The Devourers arrived 2 days later. The swarm was so large it blotted out the stars. Sensors counted thousands of bioships, each one massive and covered in armor made from consumed vessels. The unified fleet engaged. The battle was chaos from the first moment. Council ships formed defensive lines with their superior shields. Human ships punched through those lines with kinetic weapons, targeting the largest Devourer vessels. Species that had never fought together before suddenly had to trust each other completely. Lieutenant Ha Bin, younger sister of the pilot who died at Sanctuary Prime, led a new Reaper squadron. She carried her sister's legacy in her, Reaper 7. "All fighters, this is Reaper 7, she transmitted. "My sister died so others could live. Today we honor that. Today we all become Reapers." The fighters dove into the swarm. Human pilots flew alongside and crews. They covered each other, saved each other, died for each other. Dr. Na, aboard a Council science vessel, made a crucial discovery. She found what Scholar had theorized 5 years ago. The Devourers had a central hive mind. A massive bioship at the swarm's center coordinated everything. "Destroy that ship and the whole swarm falls apart," she reported to the fleet. The problem was obvious. The hive mind was protected by thousands of Devourer vessels. Getting to it meant flying through the swarm's center. It was suicide. Admiral Bow made the decision without hesitation. "All human dreadnoughts form up on my position. We're going in." Admiral protested immediately. "Sir, let me lead the assault. You're too important." "I'm old, Admiral," Bow interrupted. "You're the future of this fleet. Let me do what I should have done years ago. Let me end this war." 6 human dreadnoughts broke formation and charged into the swarm's heart. The Council fleet provided covering fire. It was the first time in history different species fought as one perfectly coordinated unit. The dreadnoughts took devastating damage. Ships fell apart under concentrated fire, but they kept pushing forward, driven by human determination and Council support. The Reckoning, Admiral Bow's flagship, reached the hive mind. The ship was dying, reactors failing, hull breached in 100 places, but it had enough left for one final act. Bow's last transmission was calm. "Earth Fleet, Council Fleet, it's been an honor to serve beside you all. Tell my family I kept my promise, I protected them." The Reckoning detonated its reactor core at point-blank range. The explosion was so large it was visible from 3 star systems away. The hive mind died instantly. Without coordination, the Devourers became confused. The unified fleet destroyed them methodically over the next 12 hours. By the time the sun rose on the nearest inhabited world, the swarm was gone. The cost was terrible. 100,000 lives across all species. 40,000 were human, but they won. A monument was built at the Barrier Nebula. Admiral Bow's name was carved first, followed by 99,999 others. It wasn't called a human monument or a council monument. It was simply called the Guardian Memorial. Admiral stood at the dedication ceremony. He was older now, his hair gray, his face marked by too many battles, but his eyes were still clear. "These names represent every species in the Council," he said to the assembled crowd. "Human and dozens of others. They died as one fleet, one family. That's what we built from the darkness. That's what they gave us." 5 years after the Battle of Barrier Nebula, the galaxy was different again. The shipyards built new vessels with combined crews as standard. Military academies taught human and council tactics side by side. The old divisions remained, but they were fatting. On the Iron Wolf II, Captain Me received new orders. Her ship would patrol the galactic rim, watching for any sign the Devourers might return. Ensign, now lieutenant, stood beside her on the bridge. "Do you think they'll come back?" asked. Me thought about it. "Maybe, probably, but if they do, we'll be ready. We'll answer the call, that's what we do." The Iron Wolf II jumped to slip space, beginning its patrol. Me recorded a log entry as they traveled. "This is Captain Me of the Iron Wolf II. We are the children of Earth. We are members of the Galactic Council. We are beasts when we must be, guardians always. And if you cry for help, we will answer. We will always answer, because that's what it means to be human. That's what it means to be alive." The galaxy learned its lesson. Humanity brought violence, yes, but they brought it in defense of others. They were dangerous, but their danger protected rather than destroyed. And when the next threat came, because there would always be a next threat, the galaxy knew who to call. They would call the beasts, the guardians, the humans who chose to answer every cry for help. No matter the cost,